Take a grab it. All right, you're in charge of showing it? Thank you.
Good. Capture the best side.
Like
That might be difficult.
We're live
Good.
streaming.
We're live
yes.
streaming.
Yes.
Terrific. Rabbi Stroller is idea, not my idea. When you're giving a share on humility and you want to live stream it, it's not right.
It's on YouTube Live. This way we could just have the video. Some people wanted to watch it, but then what? On YouTube Live.
Okay, I'm looking at things and I'm seeing freshmen all the way to seniors in the room. Yes? Yes. So seniors in the back, maybe? Juniors in the back. Okay, juniors in the back.
Just made their day.
I'm sorry. I know. I apologize to the seniors ahead of time. Okay, so juniors in the back, sophomores. What are we? Freshmen. Freshmen. You're all mixed. That's so wonderful. Then it does. It's not. I'll sit. You give the share. Come on. That's good. Okay, so not only do I get to live in Great Neck and see some of you on a everyday or maybe a weekly basis, but this is actually my old stomping grounds, Holliswood, as well, where I did my internship and I was riding around a little bit, got to see where we used to live and everything. How many of you actually live in Holliswood? I would assume not many. Yeah, okay. None of you. I'm so glad I mentioned it. Good. Jamaica's represent. Good. Terrific. Give me a grade on these source sheets, because I came in and it's clearly an excited group, but like I didn't hear a whole lot of like development of the source sheet. So if they were above the level that they should have been, you'll grade it as a C. If they were just about the level that they should have been, you'll grade it as a B. And if they were well below the level that they should have been, you'll grade it as an A. So first thing I'm asking you to do is grade me. Miss Hammerman, grade me. A, B, or C. At the level, above the level, below the level. Were they worthwhile in any way? That's really all I want to know. They were. Okay, terrific. So I was given a good secret early on in life. It's just about your age. And somebody came to me and they said, you know, you really have to develop your knowledge of what your strengths and what your weaknesses are. That if you're going to be successful, and I wasn't near close to being a rabbi or anything like that, but if you're going to be successful in life, you really have to appreciate what you're good at, and you also have to know what you're not good at. And so that's a well-known understanding of how the world works a little bit. I would have probably assumed that most of you know what you're good at. Actually admitting what you're not good at is certainly harder. But let me pose the following question to you, okay? Which one do you think is more important? Do you think it's more important to know what you're good at? Or is it more important to know what you're not so good at? You're all good. So wonderful. Terrific. Know what you're good at. Well, I'm sorry, who said it? Where am I looking? Oh, good. You think it's more important to give me a name? Hannah. Incredible. Okay. So Hannah says that it's more important to know what you're good at. Why? So you can use that to the best of your abilities. Okay. Anybody disagree with Hannah? I don't know your name. So it's gonna be Sarah. Yeah. Terrific. Sarah says it's better to know what you're bad at or not so good at or not yet good at something. Why is that? What's the rationale behind that opinion?
That if you know what you're bad at, then you can like look closer to it and then like improve.
You can improve. Great. Perfect. So Chazal are really all over the place with this, and you'll get really a myriad of opinions as to if you're supposed to focus on the things that you're good at. And the underlying basis of why you would do that is because Hashem has gifted you so many different unique qualities that you have to know how to develop those tools so you can partner with God to do good for the world. And that's focusing on what you're good at, right? Anybody here good at building things? Like if something, nobody in the room. God bless your husbands. Terrific. It's nice when somebody else nominates you for saying you're good at it. Okay, terrific. So that's that. You have to know what you're good at, right? And if you know that you're not so good at something, so you leave it for somebody else, right? Somebody else to do it. And then there's a whole other school of rabbis and psychologists as well who would suggest to you that the best thing for you to know is what you're not good at, and to admit those things, right? And for the obvious reason that Sarah already told us is that this way you can improve upon it. And if you're never in touch with those things, so you can never improve upon those things. So the general approach in which the rabbis generally take is they actually like decide that better to focus on the things that you're good at and develop them and make them even better at what you were originally given at birth, or what's innate or what's more natural, and make those things the best things, because that's how you develop self-confidence and you develop self-esteem. So we're talking about humility today, okay? And humility is about knowing what you're good at and what you're not so good at. So anyone want to just give us a good definition of humility? Anybody want to stand up and say, I'm humble?
Like Moshe.
Moshe.
I feel like that's the best.
So Moshe is described as humble. Anybody know the words of the Torah? Anav mikol adam. Terrific. He's anav mikol adam, which we describe as humble, but that doesn't define anything. That just gives us a label. So give us a definition of humility or being humble. Somebody comes over to me and says, Lichter, you have such a nice voice. We would like for you to daven Musaf, which no one ever does, right? But we would like for you to daven Musaf, right? Do I have to say, thank you so much? But I really don't. Like, what do you want from me? Because you're clearly not telling me the truth. Or can I say, oh, thank you so much?
Thank you so much.
Is there one response that I have to have?
No.
Depends on the situation. That's always a good answer, right? Okay, so let's do the first source because it's a joke. Did anybody get the first source as a joke? Anybody look at the first source? Okay, so the first source is a Gemara that's tucked away, right? Really at the end of Masechet Sota. It's the last parak in Masechet Sota. It's the last couple of pages in Masechet Sota. And the Gemara is actually reviewing some historical events. And the Gemara is saying that not only are we able to appreciate the transition between Mishnah and Gemara and the different generations of Gemara, right? Like if I would ask you, who's the rabbi who gets credit with being first generation Amora? Who's the guy that all the other generations come with? Some say that he was even a Tana. Some say that he was an Amora. I see you don't have to answer A, B, or C or what side the sheet is. Rav, anybody ever hear of Rav? Rav? He doesn't get it. It's not like Rav somebody. It's just Rav, correct? So Rav is that Amora. He's first generation Amora. Okay? And then there were other generations. And the Gemara loves to do the following. The Gemara loves to say, when this person passes away, when this person is no longer, this attribute, right, was no longer in the world. And they don't mean that literally, because obviously anyone can come around and take that attribute and acquire it and now be known for that attribute. But the Gemara is telling us is that we're into models, right? Talk is cheap. We're into models. We like to see, right, people live a certain way of life. And so the Gemara actually points out certain people who were known for doing certain things. And when that person passes away, our model has gone. Who are we supposed to turn to see how we're supposed to conduct ourselves, how we're supposed to behave? So Gemara says an incredible thing. Take a look at source 1, okay? There's a bunch of names. Source 1. When Rabbi Akiva dies, batal kavod haTorah. Rabbi Akiva dies, the honor of Torah is gone. What that means, I'll leave it to you for another time. Right? Rabbi Chanina ben Dosa and Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and Rabbi Gamliel, all names that you've heard before, very famous rabbis. Okay? So go to the last line in source 1. Mishemet Rebbe, Batla Anava V'yirat Chet. Who's Rebbe? Give me another name. Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, terrific, right? Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi, what was his major accomplishment in life? Go ahead, 2 for 2. He wrote the Mishnah. He codified the Mishnah, right? He put it all together. He organized it so that you and I can learn it, right? This is Rebbe. So Rebbe is known for his great wisdom and timing, for him to be able to sense that even though there's a prohibition not to be able to write down Mishnah, he decides that we're going to lose it. And so he's going to write it down and be able to codify it and preserve it for all generations to come. So this is Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi. So the Gemara says when Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi passes away, gone, batla, gone is anava, is humility, v'yirat chet. What's yirat chet? Fear of sin. Okay? Now that's not a joke. Okay, the Gemara meant that in a real way. Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi was a great paradigm, a great model for somebody who is humble, right? And it's usually, right, the Gemara's, if you know nothing, so then it's very easy to be humble. But if you know everything, like Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi knew it, so then people tell you not only are you great, not only are you wise, but you're also humble if you conduct yourself that way. So look at the Gemara. The Gemara has a comment on this, okay? Gemara says, "Mishamei Rebbe Batla Anava v'Yirachet." So Amar la Rav Yosef. Rav Yosef in the back, right? Rav Yosef in the back. So he, stands up, raises a hand, and he says, "When you say that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi he dies and gone is anivus, gone is humility, I got a problem with that. Why?" So Amar le Rabbi Yosef Latana. He said it to the author of the Tana who wrote this Mishnah. Lo titne anava. Have a whole slew of things that are written in this Mishnah. That last line shouldn't be there. Why? De'ika ana. Because I'm still here, says Rav Yosef. Right? I'm still here. So Amalei Rav Nachman Latana Lo titne yirachet de'ika ana. Rav Nachman then gets the confidence and he chimes in after Rav Yosef and he says, yeah, that fear of sin issue that Rabbi Yehuda HaNasi dies and now we don't have fear of sin. Well, I'm still here too. So let's focus on that first one. That's the joke. Right? All of a sudden, Rav Yosef hears that gone is anivas, and he stands up and says, hello, take a look. Humility in the flesh. It's almost a patently ridiculous comment. How can you say humility is right here? Right? It goes against everything that we know humility to be. So if the Gemara is just making a joke, so you laugh and you say, okay, Rav Yosef, who we thought was a rabbi, loses that prestige a little bit because no rabbi that I know would go ahead and say that. But if it's not a joke, if we're supposed to take something from it, then we got to dig a little bit deeper. And so that's what caught my attention, and that's what I prepared tonight to kind of share with you. Okay? Before I share my findings and my thoughts, anybody want to share what their initial reaction to this Gemara is? Comes along Rabbi Yosef and says, hello, I'm humble. Why do you say humility died? I'm right here.
It's crazy.
Give me a name.
Sarah.
Sarah.
I think just by the fact that he's saying I'm humble shows that he's humble.
Right? I mean, on the surface,
Yeah.
it's a pretty crazy statement to make. Right? What else?
I agree, and I just think
You agree with Sarah or with
Sarah.
Sarah?
And
Sarah.
Sarah. And I just feel like it's just like boastful, I guess you could say. It's just like he's like putting his head up high and saying, yeah, I'm humble too. Like,
Okay, so I agree with you. The simple reading is this guy's on something. That who is Rav Yosef to come along and say, I'm the number one guy when it comes to humility. My question to you, is there any other way to see it? The answer is yes. Right? There's got to be another way to see it because it doesn't belong in the Gemara. So how can we possibly see it any other way? Sarah wants to make another remark.
I think when it says like he's humility, I think that's like a bad thing because I think like someone like shouldn't be like humble on their foreknowledge. Like it's not something you should hold back from. Or say like if someone says like, oh, you're you're good like rabbi, like you just like, oh
No, I'm not. I failed all my tests.
It might not have been right to say like it might not have been right to say like that I'm number one and that humility hasn't died, but to say like that like maybe like try and say it humbly, but I don't think saying that he's like
Good.
so there.
Good. Nice. You have an extra lollipop?
Did you want extra lollipop?
I'm just joking. Yes. Go ahead.
I think it also like
A name?
Rebecca.
Rebecca. Hi.
I also think it goes back to like the first question of like, is it better to know what you're good at or not good at, and it just like what starts something maybe or what maybe they say it in the most humble way, maybe it's recognizing the two of them are recognizing what they're good at.
Okay. Let's call a spade, right? If somebody's wise, if somebody's kind, it's okay to say I'm wise and I'm kind, right? And if nobody else recognizes it, shame on them. There are times I gotta spell it out for you. So that's a very good possibility of what it is. One more. Go ahead. A name?
Yeah.
I got
I think he realizes what an important trait humility is, and he doesn't want people to think like humility is something everyone wants to learn from. Like he's saying, I'm someone who can learn from when it comes to humility.
Good. Anybody agree with Yael and I'm sorry, one more time? Rebecca, thank you. Anybody think Rebecca and Yael are on the right path? Sarah, who disagreed earlier, now thinks that they're in the right path.
I think so.
Good. Okay. Terrific. Wonderful. Okay. So there's actually a very interesting machloket on this. And those are our next two sources. Between the Netziv, okay, and the Ramchal. The Ramchal is the famous author of Mesilas Yesharim, Path of the Just. Anybody ever see such a sefer? I'm asking a lot of questions where nobody's got answers. Good. Okay. Right? So usually that's not two people who usually argue. Because the Netziv is somebody who gives commentary to the Chumash and gives commentary to the Gemara and deals in more halachic texts than philosophical or Musar texts. And the Ramchal, the Path of the Just, is all about Musar. So you ask yourself, where the two where are they going to overlap? But here they do. And what's interesting to me about this is that I wouldn't have known about this statement of the Ramchal if the Netziv himself did point it out. Meaning, first he quotes his own opinion, and then he says, by the way, one of the giants of the generation disagrees with me, right? Which is already a lesson in humility, perhaps. Okay, so what does the Netziv say? Okay, so Netziv says, what does humility look like? Okay, so Netziv says, it's really all about your actions. It's really all about your actions. Right? In fact, we always talk about false humility. Right? Somebody, if you know you can, you're a terrific math student, right? And somebody comes over to you and says, I need some help in math. I've seen your grades. You're the one to go to. And you say, listen, I'm really guessing on most of this stuff. I really don't know what I'm talking about. Right? That's false humility. If it's right, if it's not true, that's false humility, right? False humility, according to everybody, that's no good. Okay. But comes along the Netziv and says, you have an absolute obligation to know your strengths. And for you to suppress that, and for you to look the other way, and for you to negate those strengths, and for you to say, you know what, the gifts that God gave me, they're not really gifts. I'm just guessing most of the time. Right? That's one of the worst things you could possibly do. So you have to admit to yourself that you're pretty special. You have to admit to yourself that you've got some real props that people should give you credit for. Okay? So then where's humility come in? Humility comes in is that you have to recognize that just because you have those talents, just because you have that knowledge, just because you have those skills, doesn't mean you should be rewarded or awarded for them. So we have a well-known halakha that might not apply to you, but nevertheless is still a well-known halakha. Somebody comes up to a man in shul and offers them an aliyah. What is the man supposed to say? Thank you. Okay, so that's like any other gift that you're receiving. Thank you. So the halacha is that individual is supposed to turn down that aliyah. And then the gabbai, smart enough, will say to that man, no, we really want to give you an aliyah. It's your yard site. It's your bar mitzvah. It's your wedding. We really want to give you that aliyah. And the halacha is that actually you're supposed to turn it down 3 times. Right? You know, that's
like convergence when someone wants to convert.
The 3 is similar. I'm not sure that everything else is, but okay, good. You're 100% correct. So that to me, when I first learned that halacha, maybe I was your age, right? That screamed false humility, right? Because the joke is that the gabbai comes over to you and he says, "You want aliyah?" And you say, "No." "You want aliyah?" "No." "You want aliyah?" "No." "You want aliyah?" "Yes." "Thank you very much." Right? That screams false humility. So what is that halacha about? I know how to say the brachot. I know how to receive an aliyah. Right? Let me check. We're going to play this game. He's going to ask me 3 times. Right? It's weird. It's not the first time I've been called weird. It's fine.
No, not you.
Oh, the halacha, even worse. Kol hakavod, right?
Not the halacha. It's just like awkward, like you can't just say like no, and then like unless you say okay, fine, I'll just like take it.
It's
But you can't just say like no, and then we're like yeah, like it's just weird.
It's a silly game.
Yeah.
It's a game to play. So that's why anybody ever see that like conversation take place in shul? Right? You rarely see that take
But I
place.
think it's humility.
You think it is humility?
It's not false because it could be like, why Moshe did it a lot of times. He did it like 2 times. Like I don't deserve it or something like that.
Have the guy move on to someone else.
Yeah.
Like, why is God gonna ask you 3 times? You say no. Okay. Yes,
Did you
fine,
just
leave
get?
it.
Who are you that you all of a sudden put yourself in this?
I just gave the Mishmar Torah.
You gave a mishmar at Har Torah?
Yeah.
I'm sure it's
She's a ringer. She's here to check out your.
Terrific.
I'm around too.
Yeah.
Terrific.
It's like not being in the front.
So there are several things that I want to touch on that you mentioned. First of all, did Moshe serve as president for this? And your name, I'm sorry? Me'ira says, repeat it for me.
Can the guy just move on like you said?
Of course he can.
Go ask someone else.
Of course he
I
can.
don't think he has so much
Right.
patience to be like,
The whole
oh,
room is
just have it happen.
There's a whole room is okay,
So-
the guy has a problem and the whole room
I'm
is
sorry,
like,
So I'm not suggesting that this halacha be ignored, right? But what I am suggesting is
Can he
that
ask 3 times in a row? It's like forgiveness.
Yeah. Is that it's
it's
the halacha is there to present a certain mindset to the person who's going to receive an aliyah, right? As the Hammerman ladies know very well, right? As their father is the Gabbai in shul. So when people have a simcha, right? So they have a bar mitzvah, a bat mitzvah, wedding, whatever it might is. So to take all 7 aliyot for them, that's like a lot, especially if you have a large shul and there are people of yard sites and everyone needs a piece of the pie, right? Everyone gets. So there are many people who come to the Gabbai and ask the Gabbai, I need 7 aliyot and I need 4 more to do psicha and I need, the chazan, he should get a week off this week. Let's have somebody else daven. Let's have somebody in my family daven musaf, right? You're asking for a lot. Why? Right? Because, your second cousin had a baby. Very nice, right? But you have to appreciate the fact that there are other people in the room. So this halacha of asking 3 times is to create a mindset that you don't deserve, right? Let me say that differently. Everyone deserves an aliyah, right? Which is a whole other topic of what do you have to do to not get an aliyah, which is very interesting on its own right. But you can't ever have something where you expect it coming to you, right? That's what goes against anivus and humility, where you're expecting because you're the person who's related to the guy who's getting a bar mitzvah that you deserve an aliyah because you're getting married. The halacha states, right, that you deserve an aliyah, but to have the mindset where it's coming to you, where it's something that you deserve, that's where the rabbis say that's not a good mindset at any time in your life to really feel that way. I'm sorry.
So,
Back to Rebecca.
so the shul have like certain kinds of video people buy it.
Hmm.
Like an aliyah is like special. It's like nice to get an aliyah. You'll want
Right.
something, so they buy them.
So it's actually a fascinating halachic discussion. If when you purchase an aliyah, when you quote unquote purchase, because lots of times it's on Yom Tov, we're not actually handing money over, and what type of kinyan, what type of transaction are they making? Let's say you purchase an aliyah, and somebody else comes in and is a real chiyuv, right? They have a real obligation to get that aliyah. You purchase the last aliyah. All of a sudden, somebody walks into the shul, and they by halacha need the aliyah, and you merely purchased it. So there are many poskim who suggest that you never really actually purchase it. That there's no such thing. You've put it on reserve. Does that mean when you call up the restaurant and you make a reservation that the restaurant can give your table away? They can give your table away anytime they want, right? And you can walk in and be upset about it, right? But you don't really have great grounds. You're reserving it. Does that mean that if you show up 45 minutes late that you deserve your table? Right? So when you purchase an aliyah, it's not really, according to many, it's not really an actual acquisition of an aliyah. And the halacha seems to be telling us, even with that halacha, it's a good point, that you never really buy an aliyah where you feel like it's coming to you, where you feel like it's absolutely yours and no one else has rights to it, right? The Gabbaim still have flexibility in that area. But it's a good point, Rebecca. Thank you. So let's get back to it, okay? Says the Nitziv, you're supposed to think highly of yourself. In fact, if you don't think highly of yourself, that's a whole other issue that we'll have to talk about. But you're supposed to have a healthy self-esteem where you know the gifts that you've been given by God are there and you can contribute to society and you can help each other out. Wonderful. Shalom al Yisrael. Okay? What you can't do is demand that you are going to be honored at the Central's next dinner. What you can't do is demand an aliyah because, hey, you just made a siyum. Right? What you can't do is go up to somebody and say, I did X, and therefore you have to respond in kind. That is the antithesis of what humility is. Think highly about yourself, know what your strengths are, right? But you cannot demand anything of anybody else. Does that make sense to you as a proper definition? You go back to Moshe as a precedent, right? You think Moshe didn't know what he was good at? Right, let's go. Where's the scenario where Moshe kind of gives God the impression that he doesn't really think he's up for the task? The burning bush, right? Where Aaron is better equipped to take the Jewish people out. I got this list. I can't speak right? All these types of things, right? Did Moshe not recognize his strengths? So was he playing a game? Right?
No.
God, ask me 3 times, and then I'll say it, right? and then I'll say okay to it, right? Moshe was perhaps trying to recognize that although he recognizes his strengths, right, he also wants to say, I know I'm not expecting. For me to expect that something like this was coming to me was absolutely patently ridiculous. But to say that Moshe is a precedent for turning things down, I really think that maybe that's a little bit of a different situation that we'll have to talk about another time. Okay, so that's the Netziv's approach. Okay, what's the Ramchal's approach? Moshe Chaim Luzzatto, the author of the Path to Just. So the Ramchal says as follows. Okay, Ramchal says that everything in life is about your thought and how you view yourself. You know, if you want to make sure that you're not going to go up to somebody and say, I deserve X, Y, and Z. So the only way you're going to be able to prevent yourself and hold yourself back from doing that is if you really think that you don't deserve X, Y, and Z. But if you think, right, you're chashuv enough to deserve X, Y, and Z, chances are there's going to be a slip of the tongue along the way. Chances are at some encounter with some person along the way, you're going to slip and say, I really do deserve that. So says the Ramchal, the only way to ensure that you don't demand honors, that you don't think that something is coming to you, is to really work on yourself to a way that you really believe you have so many faults, you have so many deficiencies, despite the fact that you have some other things on the other side of the plate which are good, you really don't deserve anything. And this is the great debate between the Netziv, okay, and the Ramchal. Am I allowed to think I'm good, just can't act on it? Or should I really keep lowering myself any chance I get? So the truth is that there are really 2 words. Okay, Moshe, you told me earlier, is described as an anav. Okay, an anav is somebody who's humble. That doesn't mean that you are ignoring your traits, ignoring your best qualities. It just means that you're putting them into a certain perspective, and nothing is certainly coming to you. As opposed to David HaMelech. Now, David HaMelech was also described as quote-unquote humble, but the word that in Tehillim is not used to be anav, but rather it's shval ruach. Give me a definition. Shval ruach. Let's start with the easy one. Ruach. Wind. When it's referring to a person has spirit, right? Shval, even if it doesn't even sound like it doesn't sound like a very prestigious, elaborate shval. You said a shval, right? Shval. Shval means you're broken spirit. You're down in the dumps. You can't help but only see your faults and your deficiencies. That's the pasuk describing David HaMelech. So David HaMelech is described as shval ruach. Moshe is described as the anav. The way that the Netziv approaches it says Moshe's approach is much healthier. For us, this day and age, right? There are lots of different yeshivos and schools who used to do all different types of things, Hasidim who used to do all different types of things to make sure that their students never thought of themselves as anything too good, right? But for this day and age, you need to be an anav. Lichter needs to be an anav, right? We have to appreciate that we have wonderful qualities. It's just what's the next step? What do we expect of ourselves? And more importantly, what do we expect of others? right? When we have these qualities, right? How can it be that they haven't called me for a shir yet? It's 2019. I've been in Great Neck since 2010. Rabbi Shulowitz waited 9 years to call me to give a shir in Central. Like, I'm it. In Great Neck, I'm it. There's no one bigger than Lichter, right? How can it be? Right? Obviously, right? That's something that is very dangerous for a person to think. But the truth is, I wanted to bring this conversation a little bit of a different way, because up until this point, maybe we quoted some sources that you have yet to heard of. Maybe we made it a little bit clearer as to what is humility and what is something that's less practically good for us. When I think of humility, I think of the word vulnerability. Vulnerability. The way to ensure that we are humble people is by putting ourselves in vulnerable situations. Give me a definition of vulnerability. When was the last time you were vulnerable?
Half an hour ago.
Why? Because you gave a shir in front of all these people, and they could have either said, "Oh my gosh, she doesn't know what she's talking about, and she's boring, and I'd rather be on my phone right now," or
So some of them did.
right,
Not gonna lie.
right, or they said, "Wow, this is Central. This is what the product of Central is. It's amazing." So anytime you put yourself in front of a group, you're going to be vulnerable.
Like you right now.
Like me right now, right? You're checking out how come he's got lint on his suit, how come he has, in the picture he had more hair, now it's like he's got less hair, like what's going on, right? You put yourself in a vulnerable situation every single time you're in front of a person, right? And the question is, are you going to have your guard up, right? And make sure that you put your best foot forward every single time in every conversation, right? Or is it something that's going to be more welcoming to people? We hired a new chazan this past year. I'm not going to say our older chazan because he was older, but he was our last chazan retired, right? And we hired a new chazan. And throughout the process, I said to my wife, and my brother-in-law is a chazan, and I said to my wife, chazanim, they're like divas. They're just like, they always, want everything, and they think they're like the center of the universe. She said, "What are you talking about? Who are you basing off of? My brother?" I said, "Yeah, a little bit. I'm basing it off of my brother." She said, "Not all chazanim are like that, right?" And Baruch Hashem, we found somebody who's awesome. Who's awesome, and he is wonderful. But that's not to say that throughout the process I was totally wrong. And I know I'm casting a bad light on chazanim. They're not the only ones who have who understand what a diva's attitude is. But what it means is that if you speak to somebody and every single time they bring the conversation back to them, right? So today I woke up and I went on the school bus and I had a test. It was a pretty hard test, and I'm feeling like I didn't do so well on it. And oh yeah, well, I had a test as well, and I didn't do so well on it. And every single thing that they say is not answering or is not responding to you, but is actually bringing it back to them, right? That's a lack of anivos, right? You've experienced it. I've experienced it. We've all experienced it, right? To be a true friend, you have to listen to the next person, and you have to respond to where they are, and not just saying, "Oh yeah, I have that in common as well. Yeah, you're wearing a black skirt. Well, I have a black skirt. It's a little bit nicer," but you have to be able to see where that person is. You guys are. Can I talk about dating for like a second? You guys are going to get there at some point, not too far off in the future. That keyword of vulnerability, of not just keeping yourselves open and making sure that when you're sitting across the table from somebody that you're not closed off and you're not sitting like this, which is a telltale sign of get out of my face right now, but that not only that you look like you're enjoying it, but that you're actually willing, I don't want to say just willing to get hurt, because that's what happens sometimes, right? If you're anything like Lichter, you get hurt, right? But you're willing to say, I need to not talk about me the whole time, and I need to see if this person and I are going to be compatible with another. That takes tremendous vulnerability. You do it every single day. That's why you care about what you wear every single day. It's why you care about what your hair looks like. It's why you care about whatever comment comes out in class. It's, did I say the right thing? Did I say the wrong thing? We are constantly vulnerable to each other. But if we're able to create an atmosphere where vulnerability is something that we want, where it's good, it's healthy, it makes us grow as people. So let's be vulnerable and let's appreciate that everyone should be vulnerable, that we're all growing. So then it's such an easier way to go through life, right? Rav Yosef comes along, and you have to appreciate. I have 5 minutes. You have to appreciate where Rav Yosef is coming from. Okay, Rav Yosef and Rabbah were the greats. Okay, in Bavel. Okay, that was the center of the Torah. We had 3 great yeshivos in Bavel. Anybody? Surah, Naharda, Pumbedisa. All great names, right? Pumbedisa, great name. Surah, Naharda, Pumbedisa. Okay? The Rosh Yeshiva had passed away. And now it was time for the Jewish people to pick the next Rosh Yeshiva in the Yeshiva of Pumbedisa. And who were the candidates? It was Rabbah and Rav Yosef. Okay? And the Jewish people of Bavel couldn't make the decision. They couldn't. These were 2 greats. They were 2 giants. You couldn't make the decision. So they sent word back to Israel. And they said, you guys make the decision for us. And the way that they put it is, we have a decision to make between somebody who is a Sinai and somebody who's an Oker Harim. By Sinai, they meant somebody who has such a breadth of knowledge. You can ask him a question in any area of Torah and Halacha, boom, on the spot, on his fingertips, he has an answer. An encyclopedia. That's a Sinai. Versus an Oker Harim, literally an uprooter of mountains. He might not know it all, but when he speaks, right, there's such depth in that one issue. He pierces mountains with it. Right? He gets to the core of the issue every single time. He doesn't talk about superficialities. Right? The Sinai guy might know a little bit about everything. This guy knows a tremendous amount about fewer things. But when he speaks, the heavens open up. So which guy should we take? So comes back the word from Israel, and they say, you got to take Sinai. At this moment in time, you need somebody who knows a lot about most categories. That person is Rav Yosef. Okay? They come to Rav Yosef, knock on the door and say, Rav Yosef, we got word from Israel. It's not just us who are saying it. You're the next Rosh Yeshiva. What does Rav Yosef say? Absolutely not. Rabbah's your guy. Rabbah, the Oker Harim, the one who can pierce the mountains, he is your guy. And the Gemara tells us that not only would they didn't just ask him, okay, now will you take it? How about now will you take it? 3 times? No. Rav Yosef absolutely refused. Okay? And the Gemara tells us that Rav Yosef, it seems like doctors made house calls in those days as well. He refused to have the doctor come to his house. It was a sign of kavod, right? For a doctor to come to your house. Not everybody gets, house calls. The majority of us have to go to the doctor. If you're a chashuv person, the doctor comes to you. Rav Yosef refused to have it. Any awards, it's an example of any kavod, right, that Rav Yosef could have had or had in the past. When Rabbah was in charge, when Rabbah was the Rosh Yeshiva, Rav Yosef says, I'm not having it. Just because I don't want to impinge on Rabbah's authority. Okay? Rabbah passes away, and Rav Yosef gets his opportunity as well. Okay, but the appreciation what Rav Yosef was telling the rabbis, and really what's telling us, is that it's a little bit tongue in cheek, a little bit of a joke. Hey, Rebbe dies, and we had nobody to look to, nobody to serve as a model, right? But Rav Yosef is suggesting is that it's okay for us to know who we are, the giant people that we are. And it's okay even for us to say it sometimes to people who might not understand it. You have to know, right? You come along and say, Lichter, show me your smicha. Lichter, show me that you know anything. I worked hard for it, right? I can show it to you. But then to say that, therefore, you should have called me 5 years ago because I was hot then, now it's not so much, right? That's inappropriate. Rav Yosef was simply telling them, listen, we have models still. And much more that he was telling them. For yourselves, we have to appreciate the fact that a healthy self-esteem means that we're going to be able to accomplish anything in this world. And I photocopied for you a couple of secular sources. One is a poem by Alfred Tennyson, Ulysses, which you can clearly read on your own and recognize that Tennyson was telling us that we have to put our best foot forward, despite the fact that our generation might not be as strong as past generations. We still have it in us. But I also want to talk to you about what Clarence Thomas. Anybody know who Clarence Thomas is? Very good. See, you deserve to give a share. Very good. Right? Supreme Court Justice. Okay, there was a whole issue with him in 1990. Anita Hill, you'll Google it, you look it up, right? All that good stuff, right? But Clarence Thomas, I'm not saying that he's there's all good stuff with him, but he has a very interesting statement here. Anybody ever hear of John F. Kennedy's famous question when he was I don't think it was in his inauguration. I think he's speaking to the crowds, and he said, "Ask not what you can do for your country. Sorry, ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country." Anybody ever hear such a famous statement? So Thomas's commentary on that is he said, "We heard his words with ears that had been conditioned to receive this message and hearts that did not resist it." Meaning the message was appropriate for the time. He knew that would resonate in the ears of the people who were listening to it. We heard it surrounded by fellow citizens who had known lives of sacrifice, hardships from war, the Great Depression, segregation. All around us seemed to ingest and echo his sentiment and his words. Our country, our principles were more important than our individual wants. Right? People, we started with actus. Right? People understood that at that point, in the US at least, there was tremendous actus. People wanted the best for each other. They wanted the country to succeed. Second paragraph, today, we live in a far different environment. My generation, the self-indulgent me generation. I think this is more than a decade ago. Right? What do we call your generation? I'm just above that generation. What do we call it? No, you're the millennials.
No.
So you're Z?
We're Z.
Oh,
We're post 2000.
you're post 2000. Okay. So you'll maybe you guys will be better for sure, right? So today has a profound effect on much around us. Rarely do we hear a message of sacrifice unless it's justification for more taxation, transfers of wealth to others. Right? He ends, ask not what you can do for yourselves or your country, but what your country must do for you. That's the sentiment, right? That's the political sentiment that's out there now is what do I gain, right? From being a U.S. citizen, what do I gain from it? As opposed to the emphasis being on other people on the country. Humility, vulnerability, to me, I believe these are keys to success. Right? The Gemara is a famous Gemara in Maseches Megillah that we say Saturday nights, those people who stay in shul a little bit later, right? There are a whole couple of paragraphs there. And they say that wherever you find Hashem's humility, you find Hashem's greatness. The two are tied into one another. Right? You can't be an egoist. You can't be somebody who thinks such great things of yourself and yet accomplish great things. Humility has to accompany your great achievements, your great accomplishments, because nobody wants to hear from you about all your boastful and arrogant statements. We all do great things, right? But the point is not to talk about them. The point is for other people to see them, right? To model them and to feel inspired by them as well. Okay, and that's really where humility fits into all our lives. Something to think about. Something to go home with. It's not something that you follow the crowds with. Humility in each and every person's life needs to really be focused on as what areas of my life am I good at and I'm supposed to share with other people. What areas of my life are my true weaknesses, and weaknesses should never be ignored. Weaknesses should be developed. You should ask for help in those areas, and eventually all of our weaknesses should turn into strength. We should be able to strengthen one another. We should be able to really figure out each other in the best way possible and really look upon each other in the best light possible as well. I thank you for your time, for learning with me. I wish you a wonderful night. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rabbi Lichter. It's excellent and
Thank you.
really appropriate. I know some you can all relate to, so thank you so much. It's really great having you. And I've only been here for 4 years, so I couldn't have invited you earlier, but I'm so glad that we're able to have you. Really, it was wonderful. All right, everyone, thanks so much for coming. If you didn't sign in, please pass up the 2 sheets. If you did not sign in, come do so right now. And have a great night, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi Sholowitz.
I can do the right one.